What is up, Brad fans? How you doing? Welcome back. This is another episode of our look into the political sciences, specifically Canadian political topics. So if you're a fan of that, if you're Canadian or you're just a fan of Canadian politics, please enjoy. We were down a man today. Scott wasn't here to join our regular panel of regular, ordinary guys doing Canadian politics punditry, but Steve and Coleman were here, and we talked about of course, the latest revelations of unmarked graves of children from residential schools. We break it down. We give you the context. We give you the background in the episode if you're not aware of it. But it's a very important issue when it comes to Canadians and Canadian relationships with Indigenous people. We also talked about the grand reopening of my home province of Alberta, where COVID is no longer a thing. We talked a little bit about just how the guys are feeling about having all of the restrictions lifted, the vaccination rollout, and then also a bit of the politics behind that for the local provincial government. And finally, we kind of touched on this ever-looming threat that we're going to have a federal election in Canada at any moment now, where the Liberal minority government is going to call the election because they're riding high in the polls. So we talked about that, but we also talked about specifically why the opposition Conservative Party hasn't been able to gain traction. We were all kind of befuddled by this, as it seems like they've done all of the things you would think they would need in order to sort of court the middle, the center voter, the center-left voter that might be, kind of tired with the current Liberal government. Anyway, that's the topics we covered. I'm not in my usual home still, so the recording sound is maybe a bit different, and you'll likely hear my son Henrik squealing in the background from time to time. Not much I can do about it. Other than that, as always, go to the website, toobadforyou.wordpress.com. Give us a follow on the social media. Send us an email. Send us a voicemail. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll play and read basically all the messages we get on the show. You can also subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. That's also helpful for the show. You can rate and leave us a comment on those apps where you're getting your podcast. Also very, very helpful. So once again, just go to toobadforyou.wordpress.com. Everything is there on how to reach out to the show, follow the show. We also post show notes, all that kind of stuff. And you can donate if you like. There's a link there to donate to the show, help keep the lights on by me, mostly, a beer or two. It's always nice to have while I'm editing these episodes. So thank you all once again for tuning in. Head over to toobadforyou.wordpress.com when you get a chance and enjoy the episode. Well, folks, we're down a man today. We're down a man today on the regular, everyday, normal voter panel. The four guys that like to weigh in today, only three, with their opinions, because really that's what the internet needs, right? Is another bunch of middle-aged dudes with microphones giving their opinions about politics, the weather, climate change. What else are we going to touch on today, boys? Let me do the introductions as I always do. In the north, representing Edmonton, Coleman, how you doing?
Oh, it's great to be back. It's not 40 degrees today, and I was able to find my way home in the smoke yesterday. So very, very happy to be on the show.
Right, the smoke from the raging forest fires all over Western North America, really.
It's really BC. They can't keep their shit together and keep their province from being on fire, and as a result, we have to deal with the smoke. We're the real victims here.
When are you guys just going to build that wall? Build that smoke wall?
We're just going to put a giant HEPA filter across the border.
Steve's down. He's the lone representative from Calgary today. So, Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just building it up one sandbag at a time.
The wall.
That's right.
Sandbags, notoriously smoke-proof. Nothing gets through them. Sandbags. Wow, we could be using some sandbags over here in Germany. I, of course, am in Germany, currently underwater. My region's fine, but we're not going to get into climate change. But I think we can all agree, or maybe we won't, that the climate seems really crazy these days.
It seems pretty normal to me. We have smoke every summer. Things seem fine.
Things are fine where I am.
Yeah.
Ergo, there's no problem.
Yeah, there was rumors of a town in BC that set a Canada-wide record at 50 degrees Celsius, but if you look on the map now, it's not there. It's completely gone.
Right. Some say
It's
it
almost
burned
like
out.
it's almost like it completely burned down several days later, but I don't know. I think it's still rumors and hearsay if you ask me.
Yeah, well, based on the internet circles you travel in, I'm sure, yeah, it never existed.
It's a hot summer jam out here. You just got to get your mister out and go frolic. You get a little smoke, get a little mist. It's nice. It's all
Yeah.
good.
Best summer ever.
Smoked
Yeah.
meats. Smoked meats all around. Well,
Yeah, you just hang up your meats out on the deck and they smoke. It's perfect.
natural cedar smoke, with a little bit of burnt pine beetle thrown in there too. That's a real local Canadian reference, pine beetle problems.
We shouldn't
Um,
joke about pine beetles.
well, let's move to a topic that we shouldn't joke about, and no one's joking about it. It was a big topic, and we have to start. We have to start here. It's been discussed a lot in Canada already. The news made it all the way to Germany. I was fielding questions about this over here in Germany, and that is the really terrible discoveries at the former residential schools. For the people in Europe and other places that are listening that aren't aware of this residential school program was a program put in by the early colonial governments of Canada, that was basically meant to assimilate the native children. That's to put it in nice terms. Assimilate the native children, the native people into Western society, Christianize them, civilize them, that kind of thing. They use terms like we need to kill the Indian in the child. Make them Western. So basically, what you ended up with was Indigenous children being forcibly removed from their families, and brought to these schools where they were not allowed to use their language. Lots of stories of abuse, physical, sexual, mental. And for the longest time, we all kind of knew about this program. We knew that it existed. Most people would tell you it was bad. We'll get into how there's still some apologists out there. We all kind of knew it was bad. That it was, and we kind of, like we do with so many of the Indigenous issues in Canada, kind of said, yeah, well, it happened in the past, and we didn't really want to talk about it. Recently, though, I think 2 or 3 sites at least across Canada we've discovered the remains from mass graves at these sites. So unmarked graves containing upwards of 70 to 100 bodies of Native children that were presumably from victims of the residential schools. And it's brought the whole issue, right back to the forefront. Now, these discoveries were kind of made, like a month ago. It was when the story really broke. So we're kind of getting to it late. But like I said, we can't do a podcast on Canadian politics and not talk about this. So my question to you guys, to just start off the conversation on this, is what is the current mood in Canada? I'm away. Has the story faded, or is it still in the forefront? And then we can get into sort of specifics about how does this move the needle? Will it move the needle? I don't think any of us have an answer to the complex problems that are Indigenous, other people relations. But who wants to jump in? Are you guys still seeing it? Is it in the forefront?
It hasn't really gone away. It's still like, especially because they keep releasing, they keep
Finding more.
finding these, which I mean, looking back, they're not really finding them. They know they're there. It's just like they've been ignoring them for a long time. So like Canada Day was pretty subdued this year, not only because of COVID, but because of like a lot of people just weren't really interested. So that's been kind of interesting to see. But yeah, it's not great at all. And just Canada's history of So you see, like you say, I remember back in school, like you learn about residential schools, and you're just like, oh, it's a school that they sent these Aboriginal kids to, and it was great. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Then next time you learn about it, it's like, okay, maybe it wasn't so great. Like this happened and this happened, and then finally, it's like we've known what happened there for years, but just every time we have a reckoning with it, we learn a little bit more about it, and then ignore a bunch of this other stuff. So hopefully we can kind of just get it all out on the table about what really happened, because even like that Truth and Reconciliation Committee asked to like look for these grave sites, and they were denied in 2014. It was going to cost like $20 million or something like that, and they said they didn't want to spend the money on it. So it's something we've been ignoring as a country for a long time, and hopefully it does keep in the public mindset going forward.
Steve, maybe just initial thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. So I actually think that after Canada Day, the news cycle kind of has dropped the story a little bit, and at least in what I'm looking at. Maybe I'm just watching too much golf news. British Open underway, round 4 right now, by the way. Colin Morikawa leading by 2 strokes. No, it's I do think for sure, like there's different news cycles, right? There's the actual news cycle from newspapers, whatever, television news, and I would consider myself maybe not as heavy a consumer of that during the summer at least, so maybe I'm a little off base. But and then there's also like the real news, like Instagram shit and how many people are posting their support or their outrage or whatever, and that's definitely dropped off. I've seen a new fad of baby eyes where they close and open. It's cute baby eyes. Maybe
Like peekaboo?
maybe. What do you know?
I'd be interested to see
What do
Bard's
you know,
Instagram
Brad?
feed at this point.
I have a child, but I haven't seen this on Instagram, so I want to get in on it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, get in on it. No, I'm making light, but I do think it's slightly disappointingly. I don't basically, and not even just kind of the social media, which um, I jest, but I'm not really too hard up on that stuff either. But just the conversational climate around that was so. That's all anyone could talk about for a 2 or 3 week period, and now it feels like it's out of the conversational loop almost. Um, I do want to say, and I know it is somewhat when you correct or when you kind of look for uh, the the factual way of things, it can seem like you're downplaying things or whatever. But um, I know this might not be the case everywhere, but I know in Kamloops they made a very important correction on the gravesite to say that it was not a mass grave after the fact, that these were unmarked graves, but it wasn't a bunch of bodies in a hole. It was
Right. I guess that is
bodies.
that is an important, like you said, you don't want to diminish the fact that there was still a bunch of unmarked graves, meaning that families did not know where the body of their child was, or possibly didn't know even what happened to their child, if their child was
Right.
dead or alive. So that doesn't diminish it. But the imagery of, a bunch of bodies in a hole, a massacre
Yeah.
like that is different than and you could even argue that one, like, what's worse, the fact that it, like, I don't, this is a bit off topic, big dark, but the fact that it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be a hole in the ground with a bunch of people dumped in it, but the fact that you could over time just sort of hide these unmarked graves away
Oh yeah.
speaks to the systematic nature of the problem, of the
Yeah.
system that was there,
Yeah, it's
where kids just
unconscionable.
kids just disappeared and they never came back, and the
Yeah.
families were left wondering what happened. Indigenous people, you hear their stories and they talk about, they would just tell us that they ran away. We were always told that so and so just ran away, and we would hope that that's true. But now they kind of realize, or they always had a suspicion, but now we're all kind of slapped in the face with it, that it's like probably a lot of them didn't run away and they were
Yeah.
kept here. And it speaks to,
Yeah.
like you said, Coleman, that like people knew, like it's not like this, somebody in power knew about this, right? And the Catholic Church is taking a lot of heat for it because they ran the schools. It was a government, church sort of, collab. But yeah, I don't know. I
Well,
think
the
we
other
all.
thing is, if sorry, Brad, I didn't mean
No,
to
no,
cut
no.
you off there, but the idea of a mass grave and a bunch of graves, obviously, the difference in my mind is if you have a mass grave, that means it's buried all at the same time,
Yeah,
and that means that you probably, kids don't die of neglect or these other horrible things,
all at once.
disease or whatever, all at once. So if you think mass grave, you think they were probably lined up and shot,
Shot. Yeah,
basically. Um, and despite the fact that obviously when we're talking about this, the abuse, there were murders by the technical
definitions.
definition of murder. There for sure were murders. There was also disease. There was also and disease due to bad conditions, which is also, that's criminal, obviously.
Yeah,
There's also um, you know, natural death, I suppose. It's probably covers a small percentage of it as well, but and it's so hard for us to know what the cause of these deaths were right now, which is the difficulty in how you kind of go after it from here. But the simple fact in my mind is that the act of concealing it is in itself that's also a crime, and probably the thing that we should talk about. Um, that's a huge part of the story for me is not just that these kids died, but then that there were uh, that it was basically hidden. Um, and I think that there were organizations involved. When you say the Catholic Church was involved, that's absolutely correct. But they weren't even the only church involved in running the schools. There was, I believe, Anglican and United run residential schools. Um, the difference being that they apologize for their role in these churches 30 years ago. And then
the
the
Catholic
government
Church
of
has yet to
Canada,
do so. Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I think that a representative, a Canadian representative, if I'm correct here, the bishop or who's the guy from the country, the arch,
maybe a
the
cardinal.
cardinal.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's call him the cardinal. I think the Canadian guy did, but I don't think the Pope did, or well,
no, the
I don't.
Pope was taking heat for not doing it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, the concealment thing, of course. Yeah, and it just speaks to, you knew it was wrong. Like you don't hide it if it's just like, oh, some kids, it was an accident, or we had a this or that or whatever. You don't hide it then. um Maybe it's concealment, or it's just absolute disrespect for the people. Neither one is good. But I guess the interesting thing to me now to see was that there was more people, like you said, Steve. Maybe it's died down, and I guess like it's tough to maintain sort of whatever social media or cultural, like just in the zeitgeist, in the conversation, anger about something, even as deplorable as this, when there's no movement, right? Like there's nothing new. Okay, so it's like, yes, now we're all appalled, but now what? But to see that initial reaction of the appallment, of people being appalled, and Coleman, like you alluded to, the stuff about Canada Day, people talking about canceling Canada Day and all of this kind of stuff, that to me was important because that's something we haven't seen before. And I guess that's what unmarked graves of children will do. But for the longest time, the reaction, and it's, you still see it. Government officials in Manitoba are taking heat on this right now. The initial reaction, I think, of non-Indigenous people in Canada when dealing with when the subject of Indigenous issues, rights, abuse, previous abuse, land ownership, whatever it is, comes up, is to be defensive. That's kind of how I grew up with it. That was always what I saw, and kind of how I felt for a long time about it too. You always, the initial reaction is, well, that wasn't us. We didn't do that. That was in the past. What are we going to do? It's not my fault. Don't blame me for this, that kind of thing. And there was always, and I feel like that colors a lot of the response of, our society, Canadian society, to this issue. Whereas this kind of, you started to maybe see a shift where people said, you know what? Even at the very, I think the most truthful answer is, yes, we didn't do it. We didn't do this ourselves. The last residential school wasn't closed until the 1990s. I'm sure there was better oversight by that time, but still, but I think what people are acknowledging is that the crime of the future of our generations is not recognizing it, is not talking about it in the way that we're talking about it now. So we were all kind of complicit in the concealment, in the sort of cover up, in the sweeping it under the rug. Now, does that change? I don't know. I've alluded to the Premier of Manitoba making comments about how the residential schools was actually done with good intentions. They never meant to cause any pain. And then the new Minister of Indigenous Affairs in Manitoba said this in a press conference, something very similar, that the residential schools were designed to give the Native American kids the skills they needed to survive in a new society. And he was immediately called out on the spot by Wab Kinew, the leader of the Manitoba NDP, who is Indigenous, and just said, that's bullshit, man. You can't be apologizing for this stuff. Alberta, the government there has known people working on their curriculum, the new curriculum, who espouse these views as well, have written about them and stuff. So do you think that these views are no longer tolerable in the public conversation, or are we still going to see this kind of wishy-washy sort of, well, they need to get over it, or, it wasn't us, it wasn't all bad, blah, 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 this, that, or is that sort of time's up? Coleman?
Yeah, I think people move so slow with changing their perceptions on stuff, but it definitely seems like we're finally getting away with when someone says something like the residential schools had they had a good intention from the start. Like, people are kind of seeing that statement for the bullshit that it is. You can kind of see the backlash to it, where before there'd be a lot of support of it almost. I'd say, if you're starting a residential or a school program for Indigenous kids, trying to get them ready to live in the modern world, why were the schools set up really far away from their communities, and why were they stolen from their families to do it? You could have taught them how to read in their own town. Barg's a teacher. It's doable. You can send teachers to the kids to teach them. You don't have to do that. It's definitely becoming less accepted. I think a lot of people, like you say, that they're like, well, we didn't do it. Why are we forced to apologize for it? It's like, well, I might not have done it, but there's people in my age group on reserves and in the Indigenous community that are still dealing with the after effects of it quite recently. Their parents could have been in a residential school. That's pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still waves of trauma and drug addiction and PTSD that are kind of still going forward from that. And it's pretty irresponsible to say that just because I didn't personally have anything to do with it, that I'm not somewhat benefit, or I didn't somewhat benefit from it. And yeah, whenever these idiots out there saying things like that Alberta, you're talking about the guy that's involved in the Alberta curriculum, is the one that shared a picture of kids at a residential school in a play structure and tweeted because they were smiling. If they were something along the lines, if they were smiling, why, or residential schools couldn't have been a bad thing because they're having a good time in this one picture. It's any reasonable person can see how stupid that statement is. It just doesn't, you can't back it up at all. You're just embarrassing yourself when you say shit like that. So I think it's being called out more and more. white people in general, like I say, move pretty slowly as far as we'd like just snap your fingers and all of us to be on the right side of an issue, but there's a lot of dumbasses out there that you have to like slowly pull across the line. So it's gonna be years, and it's gonna be a lot of stupid white men saying stupid things and hopefully being called out more.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a white man and I'm stupid and I say stupid things, but I try and at least be somewhat conscious about the stupid things that I say.
Well, and you record them and put them on the internet for everybody to hear. So, I mean,
Hmm.
at least you got that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I will be canceled within the next 2 years,
yeah.
guaranteed.
I mean, again, like I said, we're not going to be able to solve the complex issues of what do we do now, what government policy needs to change and stuff. But Steve, I'll throw this one to you. You know, I've said, is it changing? Coleman's like, yes, the culture, the society kind of is changing on that. What do you think then of, what do you make of the strategy of some of the, we'll say, conservative politicians to sort of try and walk that line of Jason Kenney did it when statues were being torn down in response to this story. Trying to walk that line of like, well, yeah, it was bad, but we got to respect history and this kind of thing. Or when people are saying cancel Canada Day, Aaron O'Toole took the stand to the federal conservative leader took the stand to sort of make a point to say no, you know there's a line here, because I can see that. I can honestly see, burning churches, for example. There was a wave of churches being burnt in response to this story breaking. That seems a bit too far. But what do you make of the guys who are kind of already walking this line with sort of the fringe, we'll say, maybe people who would still be inclined. Well, obviously the Alberta government is employing someone who's inclined to do this, and they think he's a good guy to redo the curriculum. Do you think that's a good strategy for them, like, moving forward? Is there enough of their base that would still be receptive to that message?
Um, I
We've
guess
given you
it
no
might.
polling data whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I guess it would kind of depend regionally. I mean, I don't think it's advantageous to do this type of stuff necessarily. But yeah, I think when people are forced to confront that kind of historical, the historical crimes of the past, and you know, they perhaps lived through that time where, for us, we mostly, for the most part at least, did not. I think that defensive uh, nature, or whatever it is, that's just people working through their own shit, I think. I honestly, and it's just kind of noise to me. It's just white noise. It's pretty inconsequential. Um, Obviously, it can be hurtful to hear that, but I mean, it's just, it's what your feelings on this as a 40, 50-year old guy, white guy, or non-indigenous person. um it's totally irrelevant. It's like, it doesn't matter. This isn't about you.
Yeah.
It's not about how you feel about it. You just need to, I think you just, if you can't say something that has a little bit more contrition, then you just need to shut the fuck up and get out of the way. I don't know. People just can't, have a hard time dealing with it because, and I get it. It's like people feel like they're under attack sometimes, despite the fact that, that for them and their family, they didn't do anything uh, directly wrong. They weren't a part of residential schools, yada yada. But to see it through that lens is just, it's a pointless thing to do. Obviously, when politicians start doing it, they make fools of themselves, and it's like, okay, I can't see how that can be a good thing for you in the end. I don't think the pendulum is going to swing back to when we all kind of nod at each other over our cigars 10 or 20 years from now and say, you know what, those residential schools did have good intentions.
Hmm.
All right, good. I don't, it's just not going that way. So,
I guess the distinction though that we could make is, there's the people, there's the people that say those like blatantly stupid things that like, well, it wasn't that bad or this or that. And then there's the politicians who give cover for those people, say, oh, well, I'm not going to fire
Mm.
that guy because, you know, everyone has their views or something like that. But then there's the other, the line of defending, you know, when people start, you know, protesting in ways that they disagree with. So taking down statues, for example, or when we start changing the names of buildings and streets and stuff like this,
Mm.
there seems to be fertile ground for politicians of, you know, we'll say the right, that's where this lives, to defend that. Like that's a message that seems to still resonate with the base there. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't really have an answer as to what this is. I personally, I think change the names. You know, we don't. Does anyone really give a shit that much about John A. Macdonald? Like, was he taught? Like, we know that he's the first prime minister of Canada, but is he like a revered figure?
He was a revered
Well,
amongst the brutally alcoholic community. The fact that he accomplished all he did while drinking all he did is kind of impressive, even if it
I,
was really shitty.
you look at guys like John A. Macdonald, and it's like, yeah, he was the first prime minister. He was, but he also did things to basically build the country as we know it today. Good, lots of bad, right? I don't know. I'm not saying don't change the John A. Macdonald names necessarily. I don't really care, but um,
But I guess
it's
that's my point, though. Does anybody really care? Like, who
I
really
think
cares?
I think you got to look at it like the name. If
Other
we're
than
talking specifically
it's
about change,
hurtful to some people. Like you have a group of people who are saying this is incredibly hurtful for us because we're just, you know, we're still finding our children in these unmarked graves, and we would like the name changed. And then we have a bunch of people who otherwise wouldn't give a shit, probably don't know two things beyond what you just said about John A. Macdonald, Steve, which is he did some things, some good, some bad, and but they're making us, you know, a stink about it. And we're kind of getting off topic here, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think the name stuff kind of depends on context. Like Alberta has a remarkable amount of things named after Bishop Grandin, and most of them involve children. Which I think if you have any sort of building or any sort of facility that's catered towards children and you have it named after anyone from the Catholic Church, you probably should reevaluate that choice right now. Like
Not
they
just
have
for
a
residential
horrendous,
schools.
yeah. There's a fish and chips place here in Edmonton that was called Grand and that switched their name right away.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they only serve some kids. Kids don't really like fish and chips. There was a LRT station in Grand, the actual neighborhood of Grandin that they're going to switch. But you go down there and there's a portrait on the wall of like Bishop Grandin interacting with the indigenous people. The first time I took the train, I'm like, holy shit, this is not good, guys. This isn't
Yeah.
good at all. And they just took it down the other day. So I mean, I think you can change the name, and like for John A. Macdonald specifically, you can take his name off stuff and you can rip statues down. Some people seem to think that it's like we're just going to erase him from history. It's like, no, he's the prime minister. We're going to remember him, but maybe we don't need a statue of him everywhere.
I guess that's kind of my point,
yeah.
is that this idea that there's like, if just because there's no statue or nothing's named after him, that person doesn't exist anymore in history is dumb. It's, you know, it's history is still history, but
Uh,
you know, that,
there's
but
no, there's no, there's no statues of me everywhere, and people still know that I was arrested for selling counterfeit DVDs. That's still out there.
it's
People
still
know
on my
that.
record.
There's a
Yeah,
record, yeah.
it's not
But
going
I guess
anywhere.
the question is like who we need to maybe have a different discussion then of like who deserves a statue, who is deserving of a statue in Canadian, you know, in the Canadian public space. You know, who can we all agree is someone that, you know, and that maybe that's impossible. You're never going to find someone that we can all agree. You know, with Terry Fox, I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with Terry Fox. Except one guy's going to show up and be like, he stiffed me on a bill one time.
Yeah, yeah. I guess like the conversation. I hate to be a downer. It's just not interesting to me. I guess the statue or the naming stuff, like there's clear examples where you can strip someone's name or or take down a statue where it's just like this is absolutely clear that this person should not be recognized. Um, Sean Egg McDonald does not resonate on that level with me necessarily, but he does with other people. And then there's just some people who just enjoy that kind of um, having that kind of destruction, or that they're just in it because they're part of the wave, right?
Yeah.
They don't really care.
A
They're
little
just looking
overzealous.
to, yeah, and frankly, like for the most part, if you're gonna be defacing property or cutting down statues and stuff, um, I would probably prefer that people not do it and it just happen in the public sphere of opinion, and it gets taken down, through the normal process. I like Dundas Street in Toronto. They just changed the name of Dundas. Um, and Dundas is a very famous street in Toronto. Um, but the Dundas guy was he was a Scottish guy, had never even been to Toronto, and he was a slave guy. He was like a slave trader.
Slave guy.
He was a
Known
slave guy,
slave guy.
One
and
of
he'd
them
never even been
slave
there.
guys.
It's like, how could you? I mean, first of all, you got to be really good at your job if you're getting named after a street named after you. You've never even been in that city. Like, my
Yeah.
God. But yeah, clearly, if you're that good at being a slave guy, maybe we should just name the street after someone else, like a non-slave guy who's been to Toronto.
Makes
See,
sense. Makes
funny,
sense.
funny story about that. The city of Lethbridge was named after a guy. I think he worked for a trading company in England, and they named it Lethbridge because they were trying to convince him to move to Alberta to come to Lethbridge. They named the city after him, and he never showed up. Never actually came over.
Good move.
And now there's a
Nice.
city named Lethbridge for a guy that never actually went there.
Nice.
Well, he didn't miss much. As someone that lived in
Hey,
Lethbridge for
hey,
4 years,
hey.
longer.
I'll walk off this.
But then you get really funny situations where people are asked to name things like through voting,
Yeah,
and
you end up with Bodie McBoatface.
Uh, the internet can't be
well,
trusted with polls.
yeah, but even pre-internet, that they had Thunder Bay was named through a vote, a municipal vote, and the options were Lakeside, the Lakeside, and Thunder Bay, and uh, the total amount of votes for Lakeside and the Lakeside absolutely dwarfed Thunder Bay, but because
they
there
split
were
the
two
vote.
of them, they split the vote, and Thunder Bay came through in a big way.
So that's where the conservatives got the idea for every leadership vote that they've had over the last 20 years is
Yeah,
the Thunder Bay
absolutely.
naming vote.
I think they
But
made the right choice.
let me, can I just twist this conversation back around here? Um, so naming statues, it's not really terribly interesting to me, but like there is stuff that you can do right now, I think, that can help the situation. And Coleman, um, you earlier mentioned the oh, what's the name of that document again?
Truth and
Yeah,
reconciliation.
there you go. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
that had a number of suggestions. A lot of them were under the heading of justice. Um, and people are thinking, well, what is justice in this case? Um, for Canadians, how do we all get a sense of justice? How do our First Nations people feel like there's justice in this scenario? And it's definitely not an easy thing to get when the crimes are historical, the bodies are buried, um, and so on and so forth. But I do think that, and it's so from a date range that goes back, far into the past, as much as probably about 150 years. Um, so I do think though that there is things you can do. I think you can start targeting the Catholic Church, to be honest. Um, I think the times of the Catholic Church being treated, or any religion for that matter, but the Catholic Church just seems like they're one of the worst of them. I think treating them like a special interest group uh, with special powers in this country need to end, quite
Mm-hmm.
frankly. Um, if you have concealed bodies on your property, I don't think it should be then up to you to say, we'll release the records, we're looking through the records. No, I think it's a criminal investigation,
Mm-hmm.
and I think uh, you get your door busted down. I think you go to the head Catholic church or whatever, and you start looking through their records. You don't just say, "Will you release the records now, please?" And they say, "Sure, we will. Yes, soon."
Once
Absolutely, we
we
will.
burn all
Yeah,
the shit that we don't want
yeah.
to.
You go exercise your rights, as you have a federal police, the RCMP. You exercise your rights as an investigative body, and you go and you open their doors and you say, "We're looking through your shit," and you go over to that corner or you leave the premise, whatever, but we're going through your records, and do that as follow those trails to as far as you can. And I don't think you're going to be uh um the thing that I harkens back to me is like the Nuremberg trials, where you get people on trial for crimes against humanity. Maybe you find smoking guns where you're just like, hey, this people are still living who ran these schools, and who were clearly overseeing this stuff, and yeah, throw them in jail for sure. But you probably won't. You probably get some very old stuff, or maybe you get nothing. But then at the end of the day, when you look at these churches who ran these schools, who have largely been able to just say, yeah, oh well, like, um, suffered zero consequences for the way in which they acted. I think you just have to say, okay, well, look, we knew you guys did this, and as did we. And when I say we, I mean the Canadian government. They're both running these schools in a
Mm-hmm.
certain way. Um, it's time you're gonna have to start paying some property taxes. Let's put the property taxes of churches towards First Nations people in this country. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why? I know people ask this question all the time. Why don't churches pay taxes in Canada? It's in the U.S. I don't know what it's like for Europe. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But what we have these organizations who um, are have created atrocities against people, and they don't have to pay property taxes because they're a special interest group that frankly is becoming more and more and more irrelevant as every day passes. Um, and I just think it's time to say, you know what? You can pay the property taxes now. And then consumers of the Catholic Church can either continue to, can choose to contribute a bit more to have their buildings. Obviously, it's not a direct customer uh, relationship. It's not exactly transactional, but they'll have to figure that out. They'll have to raise more money to continue to exist. But that's their problem. That's what everybody has to deal with, right? At the end of the day. And you have a government of Canada who could use that money to, I know that like Justin Trudeau spoke really a big game about First Nations reconciliation when he first got on the scene. Most of that has frankly been a disaster when you look at the Truth and Reconciliation, how long that took, and the missing, murdered and missing women, um, how that, just kind of the disaster that was that commission as well. Um, and his promise to deliver clean water has gone, uh, you know,
Unfulfilled.
unfulfilled. They need that money to do that stuff. So maybe it's time for the churches to start paying for it. And I do think the Catholic Church is specifically should be targeted here due to their just overall uh, the cause that the fact that they caused lots of this, and the fact that they don't want to apologize for it. They don't want to, they're not forthcoming about it. And they just act like they're bulletproof. Well, they shouldn't be. They should be absolutely under massive scrutiny here. And we need to start changing how we view these institutions. Um, and we need to stop treating them like they're special, to be honest.
Well, that's one more idea than I thought we would get as an actual, something that could be done. And, it makes sense to me. And I think you're right. We could probably, let's actually take a look at that Truth and Reconciliation Commission and maybe start implementing some of the recommendations that they made, because I think, as far as I know, a lot of them have gone on. There's no action been on them. It's like, we got this document that says this is what you hired us to take a look at this. This is what we think you should do. And then we were kind of like, oh, cool. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, anyway, let's move it along. We did a lot on that, but it's a topic that deserved to have that much time on it. But we'll move to lighter topics now. Lighter topics in the Canadian zeitgeist, in the Alberta zeitgeist, because the greatest outdoor show on earth, the Calgary Stampede, is ongoing, right? A couple more days left, right? And this was, the signal, basically, that COVID is over. So I noticed that both of you don't have COVID right now. Ergo, COVID is over in Alberta. But the government was the first, I think, province in Canada to basically lift all public health restrictions in regards to the pandemic, and really didn't really hide it. Stampede was the end game. The end game was always to get to Stampede, which, for folks not familiar with the Stampede, it's normally like 1 million people visit the city, something like this, over 10 days for a giant rodeo, street festival, parties, rides, all this stuff. It had a lot of people uneasy. A lot of people felt that they were racing to get this Stampede in, and sort of just to get the win, to be the place that beat COVID the first kind of thing. But in credit to the Alberta people, will say, more than the government, but the government does play a role in this. Vaccine uptake was really, really good. It's really, really good across Canada, although first doses have stalled out now. But a lot of people got vaccinated up to the thresholds that the government said that they needed to get in order to do the opening. So my question for you guys living there is, what's your mood in terms of the public health restrictions ending? You comfortable? Did you go to Stampede? How many random strangers did you make out with at Stampede, which is, to anyone who's ever been, that's what you do there. And do you think that this, sort of, as the Premier of Alberta has put it, best summer ever, remains to be seen if it will be the best summer ever, is it going to increase his, historically low popularity? Is it going to help turn the page for a government that was pretty hard maligned at times during this pandemic. Coleman, go to you first.
Well, to answer your questions in order, I've not been to Stampede yet. So I live in Edmonton. We do not have Stampede up here.
Oh, you're not going to make the journey?
No. I was gonna try and get my public sex acts done in Edmonton this year, and not in Calgary. No, it's. I feel. Yeah, I agree. Here's my thing. I really want this opening to work. I really want it to stick, because a lot of, like, especially bars and restaurants, anything that's in the public entertainment space has just been brutally hammered this year. So I really want it to work. I'm a little nervous because every single time we've opened up, we've proven to have done it too early. We never had this level of vaccine uptakes. Like, I've had both my shots, both Pfizer. Brad, you're an AstraZeneca guy, right?
That's correct. I got it because nobody else in Europe wanted it, and I said, "Just give me something."
That's because it's a peasant's vaccine.
It's a subpar.
It's a used Kia of vaccines. I wouldn't be caught dead with AstraZeneca. I'm here to announce to everyone out there: if you're on the fence, wondering about getting your first shot, and the only one you have available is AstraZeneca, do not get it. Do not.
We have
the embarrassment.
Put the disclaimer in right now, like Instagram, Facebook, everything.
This is an official. This is an official "to Brad for you" statement. Do not get AstraZeneca. Wait for Pfizer.
Not endorse this. I have AstraZeca. It's the Toyota Corolla vaccines. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah, just keeps going. Sounds like shit, but keeps going.
Yeah.
So a lot of Alberta's been better on the vaccine uptick than I expected. A lot of people I know have gotten 2 shots. Is pretty much at this point, if you don't have both shots, you're just deciding not to have both shots at this point, which is kind of reflects well on the federal government, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But like I say, I really want this opening to work. It'll be after a Stampede. I guess we'll see if there's a spike, because it's the first big test of big mass, even though I'm pretty sure attendance is down quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But it's the first test of having, like,
it's still the biggest
gatherings.
Public event happening in Canada since the pandemic. I mean, for sure.
Yeah. So if we can get through that without a spike in Calgary specifically, because I don't think there's been a ton of travel between Edmonton and Calgary for Stampede.
That's just the federal government has kept the international borders still really tight, so that's probably going to help, not introduce a bunch of different cases or variants or something like this. I guess the question will be, even if you see a surge in cases, do you see the same hospitalizations and deaths that follow? And the vaccine should break that, but remains to be seen. Yeah.
I mean, because that's kind of my understanding. We're kind of getting towards, like, the flu shot model, where people are still going to get the flu, but you're not clogging up the hospitals with our dead sort of thing that we were doing before. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the best we can hope for, as someone that knows nothing of science. And I don't, frankly, listen to this podcast very often and hear about vaccine stuff. But, like, if we can get to that point where we can have, and I guess in Edmonton, like, everything, like I say, COVID does not exist in Alberta anymore. Like, nightclubs are open, we're having concerts, live venues, places are packed, White Ave's packed most Fridays. So it's good. I want it to work. Will it work? I don't know. Our track record of opening up kind of speaks for itself at this point.
Yeah.
I hope if we're locked down again in September, I don't know where the hell we go from there, but I kind of think with the vaccinations we've had that, because it's kind of like the urban, like Calgary and Edmonton specifically, these numbers are really high as far as vaccines go. Rural Alberta is still a bit not great, but
yeah.
I think as long as the heavily packed areas of Alberta are vaccinated, we might get away with it.
Yeah. I mean, this is that, not to turn this into a science episode, but I tend to agree that, the vaccine coverage has been good, and it should negate any more serious waves the pandemic seems to shift to now a pandemic of the unvaccinated. But my question then will go to you, Steve. Of what do you think this does for the maligned premier, Jason Kenney, who has the lowest approval rating still in the country? Is Stampede a big enough win? Do enough people care? Is this going to turn things around for him?
Oh man, you always ask me the political fallout questions.
Well, because Coleman doesn't answer them, so I have to go to you.
There were so many questions that you gave me like 3 questions.
That's
I
my
answered
style.
like 2 of them.
It's
pretty good.
You get a bunch of questions thrown at you, and you better be concise.
I'm going to bring a pad and paper next time and write down all the questions so I can answer them in full. Anyway, Barg, question for you, Barg. What do you think the political fallout is going to be from Stampede?
Thank you. Yeah, good. I mean, it's clearly, well, at least you have to wait and see, I suppose, but it looks like a win right now.
Bold answer. You have to wait and see.
Yeah, wait and see, baby. No, it's listen, we've been open now for over 2 weeks, and the cases are low in Alberta specifically, but they're low across Canada. The RT value is increasing towards 1, but it's not at 1 yet. And I think you would expect the RT level to stabilize around 1. I don't like we're not going to eliminate the coronavirus. So if the RT value stayed below 1 indefinitely, we would eliminate it, but we won't, especially with the Delta variant. So I think the goal, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this is not necessarily the goal, but is to get cases low and then have the RT value stabilize at or below 1. I think that sounds like a nice thing to achieve. I don't know, like the thing with the Delta variant obviously is the second dose, and right now Canada's, I think, over 50% now second dose. Alberta is ahead in that due to, I don't know, I think it's a tremendous job by AHS to, the only thing I can think of as to why Alberta would be outpacing the rest of Canada is just based on organization. Not that I have any inside information, but Alberta's been incredibly organized in how they've delivered the vaccine. So we're at over 50 now, but as you know, it takes 2 weeks for it to come online. So like my 2-week day is tomorrow. But knowing that it takes 2 weeks and we're at 50% now, I think we can expect to be at that 70 to 75% double dose within, probably mid-August. So the RT value should stay around half to 1, or below 1 or at 1, I would assume, based on that, unless something unexpected happens. Well, that is all to say that Alberta has opened without the hiccups that you could have been fearful of, and without anything new information, it looks like it's going to be pretty seamless. You mentioned, Coleman, that the larger city centers, Calgary and Edmonton, are where the most heavy vaccination rates are, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, it's not a good thing that the rural areas are not at the same level, but if you have Calgary and Edmonton at 80% plus of eligible, those are the most dense areas, then it stands to reason that the spread doesn't have as much of a chance in the rural areas to happen. Maybe that's actually just a misconception by me. I have no idea. But yeah, I think that the big win will be to get the rural centers at a higher vaccination rate. I think there's ways to do it, including, uh, we all saw the new incentive prizes for vaccines were all like very hilariously stereotypical redneck rural Alberta type things like get a
So
hunting license and a fishing license and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
there's a hunting license for life.
Yeah, hunting
For
license for
life.
life. That's pretty good. I'm not sure if the incentives do anything. I think you're gonna have to eventually twist their arms and especially if COVID's hanging around and being still very pesky, you incentivize vaccines by having negative outcomes for not having the vaccine and not the negative outcome of COVID because once you have it, it's too late. Um, but the negative outcome of, well, you don't have as many freedoms as those who do have a vaccine. It would be nice if it didn't come to that because that's dicey. I know it's dicey from a legal point of view, a constitutional point of view, a charter point of view, and it just sounds like what would could be a giant waste of resources and time to have to fight that battle. Um, but we might get there. Is it a win for Jason Kenney? I think you'll notice that I don't do conciseness or concision or even circumcision. Just don't do it.
Are you
Any of
saying
those
are you
words,
saying you
those
don't
root
perform
words.
circumcisions or that you are not in fact circumcised? I think the listeners would like to know specifically.
Listen, I'll perform them, but my day rate is like pretty big. It's
Barg the
pretty big.
Moil.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it's so if everything happens and no unexpected things happen, then you have to say that it is a win to open first. I mean, there's other benefits to opening first other than just saying we did it. I mean, the whole point of opening first is to charge up the economy and get people back to work and get things back to normal and have better mental health and to allow people to socialize and do regular things. I mean, obviously we want to do that sooner rather than later. Uh, so in my mind, it's a win. Is it enough to move the needle? I don't know. I I think that the government itself is just so um, consumed with moving the news cycle from one thing to the next, and they're always sticking their foot in their mouths and that kind of thing. And there's so many hiccups that it's like people might kind of just forget that this is a win and continue to move on to their other shortcomings.
Well,
And sorry, just to one more thing that I forgot. You said that the Calgary Stampede is the biggest public event since or in this kind of era of COVID. I have to think with no number basis backing me up that the Montreal Stanley Cup run slash riots was a bigger, more dense gathering than the Calgary Stampede was. Like even just pictures
Yeah,
of that
that's
square, it
true.
was like the Stampede doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean,
And
I
there
didn't
probably
see
wasn't as much
anybody
testing.
making out.
Stampede's doing a lot of
No.
testing to get into different venues, to get into different buildings, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, and they haven't been announcing attendance numbers at all, so that just leads me to think they're way down. I've talked to a couple people that my friends in Calgary that go to Stampede religiously when it's going on, and neither of them have actually been to the grounds yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think clearly the numbers are down, but there's no benefit in releasing the numbers because
Yeah.
either people will
No.
say, it's not very big. Oh, you didn't get very many people down," or they'll say it's too much.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
they'll die by that sort either way, right? So
Yeah.
And I will say, as far as because the Kenny government, they have all this time have been saying that we need vaccines to open up. We need vaccine. That was like their line. So now it's kind of seems like whatever win you get from opening up, I think a lot of people are giving the credit to the federal government because they're the ones that are sourcing these vaccines. Like, and they're the ones that have gotten so many of them. So
Yeah,
even
like I
if
said,
like if it
yeah,
comes off as a big win, it might just not be for Kenny. It might be for Trudeau.
Yeah.
could be for
Really, in a
Trudeau.
lot of people's minds.
Well, and this
And
is
I've solved the rural vaccination problem. I just
Oh,
came up
nice.
with this idea. So what we do is we get a team of gun-toting rednecks, and we tell them you have to get double vaccines
like
to
a
apply for this
posse,
new job.
right?
Like a posse,
Yeah.
exactly. You have to get 2 vaccines to get into this posse, and they're down with that because they want to be in a posse, right? Everyone wants to be in a posse. And then we arm them with tranquilizer guns filled with Pfizer, the vaccine of choice, not AstraZeneca, and we send them out to hunt rural Albertans
with a hunting license for life of other
with a
humans.
hunting license for life to hunt men, the most dangerous game of all, and we vaccinate people that way.
Good work. Good work.
Yeah,
Good work.
I like it.
All right. Well, there's a Steve. You mentioned that this government jumping from one thing to the other. They're going to put their foot in their mouth about something else. I kind of wanted to touch on that, but we're pushing time here. So the other big news is the federal election, and we just mentioned that, or the supposed federal election, the federal election that keeps teasing. All the pundits keep teasing, but we have no indication of when it will happen. All the projections are saying what now? Summer election or early fall? There's some interesting things going on there, and you mentioned that the vaccine thing could be a win could end up being a win for Trudeau because basically they came through on their promise, right? They said that everyone would have these vaccines. They said they would get it. In the early days, everyone was freaking out, and the conservative opposition, took a real hard line on, well, they fucked it up. They fucked it up. They're not going to meet this goal. They're not going to meet this goal, and then they did. So it was pundits were calling it a bad strategy at the beginning, saying, if they make this goal, it's your whole line of attack is gone. Seems to have happened, and for various other reasons, I'm sure the Liberals are riding high right now. So this is why everyone thinks that the election will happen, because they've got all the cards. They hold all the cards. Aaron O'Toole was elected the leader. There was some thought in the conservative circles that this would be the guy to replace Scheer. He was the bland, sort of no personality, the inept leader that Scheer was. But O'Toole hasn't seemed to be able to get any traction in terms of popularity for himself in the polls, but also the party. And just recently this week, there was a number of different opinion pieces scattered about the Canadian media, musing as to what's going on with the Conservative Party. Why can't they seem to get any traction here? Some pointed to fundraising and being beholden to small donors that are somewhat crazy, that make up the fringe elements of the party. Some pointed to O'Toole wanting to take the party towards a more sort of mainstream, some might even say progressive kind of platform. He wanted to introduce, climate plans, robust climate plans, things like this, and the party sort of rejecting him on that. Is it the leader? Is it the leader himself? Is he just not that likable? What could it be with the Conservative Party, and why they're failing to gain momentum in polls? Or is it just the Liberals have beat them to the punch on things? So they're the incumbent. They weathered the storm, the pandemic storm, got the so-called pandemic bump. Coleman, since you wanted a politics question, what do you think it is with the Conservative Party? Like, for example, what would it take for you to sort of become a conservative voter?
I don't know what it would take for me to become a conservative voter, but I will say we talk on this podcast a lot about the Conservatives having a problem with being a big tent and trying to keep everyone happy, and it's just not working at all. And I'm kind of perplexed by it, because like we're all very intelligent people, and like Aaron O'Toole has pretty much done everything that we've recommended that he did in the last few podcasts we've recorded. It's like, I think I remember Scott at one point saying that they need to like bring in a legitimate climate plan, and they kind of came up, as far as the Conservative Party goes, they came up with a somewhat legitimate climate plan, and I've kind of talked about not courting to the far right side, and he's kicked that one MP out. His name is escaping me right now. That lunatic, Derek Sloan. Yeah, kicked him out. They're kind of like O'Toole's running that party like how I think we would think he should, and it is not working. It is not working at all. I'm beginning to doubt my my ideas for being a successful conservative party, because I feel like if I was the working for the Conservative Party and advising Aaron O'Toole, I would have been telling him like, yeah, you're doing the right thing, and I'd probably be fired right now because this guy is tanking. It is bad. It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Like this there's polling coming out that he's the third. He's ranking below Jagmeet now in the NDP as far as like preferred prime minister. The Liberals are catching up in Alberta in polling, which if you have to, as a Conservative leader in an election, have to spend any time in Alberta to like solidify your base. Like you're in trouble. Like this is bad. And yeah, like I say, they went all in on the Liberals screwing up the vaccine distribution, which, as far as like a country that has no vaccine manufacturing capability, has anyone in the world done better than us on vaccines?
No, I don't think.
No, Canada's
think
ranked
anyone-
number one in a lot of the different categories, no matter which way you slice it.
Yeah, specifically having no access to manufacturing capabilities, because I think even Israel has some access to manufacturing.
Yeah, well, and they were able
And
to
the
cut
UK
some deals with some of the manufacturers directly, I think, due to some connections. But
Yeah.
yeah.
and like I don't know,
The
and
Israeli
maybe it's
connections. Yeah, sure. Sure thing, Brad.
Moyle Barg is on the case there. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. You can't beat the Liberals in this election. Like after you can say with like ethics wise, they still have their faults, but at the end of the day, this was going to be won and lost on vaccines, and I was told I would be lucky to get my second shot by September, and it's July, and I've got both shots of the best vaccine too, not a peasant one like AstraZeneca or Moderna. Ooh, I'm a Moderna guy. Get out of here with your Moderna. Pathetic. Yeah, Aaron O'Toole is in a tough spot. He's clearly a better leader than Andrew Scheer. The numbers just aren't working. Like it's like I don't want to say I because this is a podcast we're supposed to say what we would do. He's done a lot of things that I said he should do, and it is not working at all. I think he should consider getting into consulting. Like that might be a good idea. I'm sure he's got some good government contacts that some special interest will pay him quite a bit to consult on what they should do after this election when he gets slaughtered and gets kicked out.
Yeah, so you think if he
And
loses,
that might
he's
be a
done.
good. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
same cycle of
You can't.
beat Trudeau, so
Yeah,
kill him and put in the next guy.
He's really hard. Trudeau is a remarkably good campaigner. The Conservatives always have half the party always have their knives out for the leader. It seems. I don't know who they even go with after this because I think Peter MacKay hates them. I don't think he's coming back. Like,
It would be great to see him
yeah.
come back and lose again, and then just
yeah, and he would because he'd be like if they have another jumping way ahead. So they lose this election, they have another leadership race. Peter MacKay comes in and he's the favorite. They have their thing, and the third choice wins again, whoever
always.
that is.
Yeah. So then, Steve, to you, is it something the Liberals are doing, or is it something the Conservatives are doing? You can give your thoughts in that framework.
You want the political fallout?
Yeah, that's right.
Fuck.
See, if Scott was here, I could buffer it around, but it's just the way that it's gone today, Steve.
Unfortunately, Scott has a bunch of bodies in his backyard, and the police are thoroughly investigating him.
He should have been at
And
church.
he won't be on this podcast. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Buy yourself some time, Bart.
I think the real question is, did you mean Aaron Brockovich?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell them apart.
Yeah. Man. Tough one for Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives. But I just think that it's like, when you deal with the pandemic, which is the most pressing situation in our lifetime, in many ways, I don't know, maybe someone maybe Coleman had syphilis, and that was a personal challenge for him. But as in terms
That
of
was
like
his personal
a
pandemic.
group, yeah,
It was
terms of
my Vietnam was
yeah,
that bad case of the clap that I had back in 2019.
that's right. It's the Edmonton Public Sex Act that'll get you every time. Um,
A lot of good men cut down in their prime.
yeah, yeah. I think the if we say it's the most pressing kind of urgent issue that we've dealt with, which it's got to be up there or number one, then you come out of it looking good, then it's people are gonna like you, and that covers up a lot of stuff. I know, and it's largely a federal issue, like Coleman said. Eh, it's people look to the guy who got the vaccines and distributed them to the provinces rather than necessarily looking at the provinces. Although I do think AHS has done a tremendous job,
Yeah.
and they should be that is a win for them. Whether
And
they'll
AHS employees are being rewarded fairly in Alberta for that job, with
That's
pay
right.
cuts across the
Yeah,
board.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so I do think he is largely unbeatable due to that. Um, at this point, and you know, like it's pretty tough, right? I remember there was a 10-ish year period where I know maybe it wasn't quite 10 years, but the Liberals just couldn't get anybody with that name value or whatever, with any pizzazz,
Yeah, they went through Stefan
like they had.
Dion, Michael Ignatieff.
Yeah, and it seems like the Conservatives have a similar dry spell of these guys who are just not able to get the lift they need, um, for going to use
So do you think it
Verneu's
is
principle of the.
it's a leader issue then for the Conservatives, or is it sort of deeper than that,
Oh, well, I mean,
or it
do you
stems from the
mean
leader? The
Aaron
leader.
Brockovich? No, yes, I do think it's a leader issue, but I mean, it's also like, so yeah, personality wise, but it's also like a political strategy um, thing as well. Like, I don't know who's calling the shots over there for old Tool, but
Well,
if
it's
he
certainly not
has
Coleman.
a commercial saying,
Not anymore,
who
anyway.
am I? Who is this guy? Like, if you're just admitting that nobody knows who the hell you are, that's the first thing you do. Maybe it's like, maybe come in with a little bit more, with a little more shine on your shoes, you know? Um, but yeah, I think it's a leader thing. I think it's a Trudeau thing. I think we may get a second wave of Trudeau-mania because he had the beard and the long hair, and I think everybody actually liked that. But then he shaved and just reminded us all, that he's got this young kind of baby face side to him too. And I think Trudeau-mania is going to reignite. Um, and I think also blackface works better if you're clean shaven. I've
Right.
heard.
It's easier to
So I don't
easier to
know.
apply and remove.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You ever try to get shoe polish out of a beard?
Yeah,
It's tough.
it's clearly a white guy
It's
beard
tough.
he's got as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if he wants to apply the cosmetics, it's easier now. Um, so yeah, I think we're gonna get another wave of Trudeau mania, and then I think that a third term is enough for any government really. So hopefully, some hilarious scandal will um, bring him down after another term, and let's get that. Who's
Pendulum
the new
swinging back
guy?
the other way.
Who's the new guy? Oh man, Mark
Mark Carney.
Carney. Is it Carney?
Yeah, Mark Carney,
I
former
was gonna
former
say
Bank of
I was gonna
Canada
say
head of,
Curry.
no. Uh,
Mark Carney. Yeah, let's get him in there. I've actually heard
or Chrystia
conservative
Freeland.
voters. Nah, I don't know. I like Mark Carney. Uh,
Yes. He clearly had a train of thought here that Christian Freeland is not a part of.
yeah. So, and for the Conservatives, I think they had a star candidate in Ronna Ambrose who just decided very valiantly to just say, I don't want to do that. And I'm like,
Fuck
that's the
that.
person that I want.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is say that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll vote for you now.
I
But
don't want to be
it's
prime
a
minister.
catch-22 because they can't be voted for.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I wonder if she can pivot from that and really lift off from there.
I hope they go with Michelle Rempel
Ugh.
because that would be a train wreck. Just a train wreck.
Well, and this is
Yeah. Okay.
this.
She'd be running from Oklahoma, not actually in Canada.
This is I mean, okay, so we're hearing that it's, yeah, okay, O'Toole doesn't have the pizzazz that Trudeau does, and the Liberals obviously have the bump from navigating the pandemic successfully. Also, none of the attacks have really been able to stick, the to Trudeau, and part of that I'm sure is his charisma, and part of that is I'm sure is the people who are delivering the attacks. And this is what, my thoughts I'll point in, I'll push in here, is that I think that the Conservatives just, that's all they're offering right now is a tax. They don't have, they don't really come out with a clear, vision. They say, oh yeah, well, we're better with the economy. Like it's just a given that they're going to be better stewards of the economy, or, but there's no real, I feel like if they had a better story, if they had a better message, something that wasn't just, don't we all hate Trudeau? Because their base hates Trudeau, but not everybody does. A lot of people can tolerate him. I don't particularly like Trudeau, but I find him more palatable than the other option. So it's, that's kind of, I feel like there's a lot of people in that way. So if they actually provided more of an option rather than just an anti, whatever the current guy is, and I think this is kind of a problem conservative movements across the world are facing. If they lean into that populism and the attacks, you always have to up the ante. You always have to find new things to attack, and you're not really providing an image of something, positive or that people can get on board with. So you either have as much hate and anger as the party, or you're going to go elsewhere. And I feel like that's running out of steam. They're not going to be able to sort of gin up enough anger. So I give O'Toole credit for trying. I think he's trying to pull the party away from that. But every other day I see something from one of the MPs, Polivier or someone else, that's just Twitter attack on so and so. I mean, the liberal guy that got caught twice naked on camera, that's not even going to stick to him.
That guy's getting help that he needs, though. So he's gonna go. He needs to go get help for. It's like, what kind of help you getting?
The statement he released was that he works too hard, and he's trying. He's working too hard, so he doesn't have time to sort of change at home or whatever. Like that was the statement. I don't remember it exactly, but his statement was basically he needs help being more efficient with his time and like understanding how Zoom works and stuff, because he's just too busy.
What time are these Zoom calls happening?
Yeah.
Sounds like this guy nailed his job interview question.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your greatest fault? Well, I'm constantly caught naked on camera because I work too hard. You're hired.
The second one, he was like taking a piss with the door open, with the camera facing the door directly
into a cup. Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, we have jugs for a reason. Keep the jug under your desk. It's fine. I'm doing it right now. No one knows.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned the Conservatives not having, like, they're just doing the attack thing. I think the Liberals are really in that mindset back when they were in the Ignatieff days and the Dion days. Like, they'd have those attack ads against Harper where they had, like, troops on the streets and stuff like that. Just fucking nonsense. Like, absolute nonsense. And they didn't really win until they got Trudeau, and then they kind of started campaigning on ideas and stuff like that. And it was a great time. It was a very exciting time for Canada. The weed was going to be legal, and everything was going to be great, and we weren't going to have any more scandals and ethics inquiries and stuff like that. And for the most part, that's turned out to be true. I can't really think of any sort of ethical missteps this government has made. But my answer for the Conservatives is just get through this one. Just get through it.
Don't drop to third.
Try your best.
I think it's pretty difficult.
They might.
What you said, Brad, is presenting a vision that includes now a climate plan that includes potentially, as Coleman said, trying to get away from the wingnut side of the party. But then I think it's difficult to get conservative voters pumped up about that, right? So it may take them a cycle or two to get conservative voters used to it, or just to get voters used to the fact that they are trying to hit the middle a little bit more, because I just don't think that with the messaging, it's tricky to get the messaging right. Like, how am I a conservative that also has a strong climate plan? Right? What is the messaging around that? Like, you have to kind of dance on a pinhead to make that happen. I think they're in tough. They need a guy to come out and challenge someone else to a boxing match. You got to get a guy to fall down some stairs and then recover, do the fall down stairs recover thing, and that's what they need right now.
Right. All things that famously
if I was
worked
O'Toole
for
at this
Trudeau.
If I was O'Toole at this point, just get weird with it. You've got one last election in you before you get brutally thrown out by your caucus. Just get weird with it. Do some new things. Get naked on camera. So to speak.
Well, I wonder how much of it too is like, can they sort of judo flip some of the things that the Liberals seem to be riding high on? Can, like, for example, now Trudeau going across the nation with the childcare, the $10 a day childcare program. Is there a way that they can flip that to, yeah, we're on board with that.
$9.50 a day childcare.
No, you go. I think
make
you go.
The choice
I think
thing,
you go
with
higher.
The choice argument that the Conservatives always do. It's like, rather than the government telling you what to do, we'll give you the choice. But it just seems that that's a more complicated message to sell. So yeah, I don't know.
I think you got to take the childcare thing. You have to attack it from a sales perspective. It's like, do you really want to send your child to a $10 a day childcare service? Does your child not deserve
$12.50?
$25 a day childcare?
Yeah, really play on the class divide. That's going to go really well for the Conservatives, I'm sure.
Hey, the poor conservative voters want to be rich, and rich conservative voters are already rich. Play towards the rich side.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think we can wrap it up here. There would be some interesting things. The NDP doesn't seem to be doing much. They might benefit from maybe the Conservatives dropping, although the Conservatives, I don't know that many swing voters would go Conservative to NDP. There could be a contingent of people out there that do that. It seems that the Liberals kind of are sucking up all the oxygen from the NDP and the Greens, which I don't think we really have time to touch on it, but the Greens are imploding at a moment when all of their issues seem to be at the forefront of the news. All of the climate news, and the Green Party of Canada is internally battling to get rid of their elected leader. It just looks like a clown show. It's unfortunate that Elizabeth May hasn't stepped up to say something, but I don't know where she's been in all of this, but it just seems like a total implosion. And after this election cycle, if and when it happens, there might not be a Green Party in the Parliament for sure.
Well, Aaron O'Toole's got a climate plan. They could be the de facto Green Party. Do we really need two environmentally conscious parties if we have the Conservatives and the Greens? Doesn't really make sense. Seems like kind of like a hat on a hat situation. Right. But the Greens are crazy. Like, I don't know, like, all that work, that party was like designed just to get Elizabeth May into power. And then it seems like when she decided to stop caring, they just completely lost any sort of direction.
Well, there was a lot of enthusiasm for the leader at the new leader, Anime Paul, at the beginning, but trying to trace back where it all went sour within the party, I think it stems from some disagreements on Israel-Palestine policy, which seems like something you could have within your caucus and not totally explode. Now I'm seeing allegations of it's racism and sexism against her from the board of directors of the party. But who knows that
Against her?
Yeah.
She's a black woman.
Yeah, exactly.
She's being racist and sexist.
No. The party apparatus, the board of directors of the party.
They're being. Yeah. Oh, I thought the board was accusing her. I'm like, that's pretty bold. I don't think that one's gonna stick.
Bold move. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird story. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. But
the Greens are that. For people that still go on Facebook, they're that part of your family that has all their fights on Facebook, like out in the open for everyone. It's like, no, pick up the phone, fight in private. No one needs to see this
once
shit.
a year at Thanksgiving, and that's it.
Yeah,
maybe at Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had members to do that. You see, they post a status and there's 48 comments on it. It's like, that's too many comments. Don't do this. This is bad.
All right. Well, gentlemen, if there's nothing burning in your pockets other than embers from the forest fires that you want to talk about, then let's wrap it up.
Yeah, let's get a quick plug in at my Instagram account at Lionel Steele, and remind everyone, if you're considering getting a vaccine, do not settle for anything less than Pfizer. If they offer you anything but Pfizer, say no. Say no, I'll wait.
That message is not endorsed by Too Bad For You. However, Too Bad For You will endorse the extremely exorbitant day rates for Steve Barg, the Moyle.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah, it's not $10 a day moil work. You want to pay for quality. High quality moil.
You want to pay for quality.
Yeah, what kind of moil do you want?
If you feel like being an intact male is a bit too much work, if you're tired of cleaning under the foreskin and you'd like to save yourself some time every morning, contact Steve Bark. He'll take care of that for you.
I also do reverse circumcisions.
You put it back on.
You add the skin back on.
Yeah.
Where do you get the skin?
Don't ask.
You don't get the skin. It's a stretching process.
Okay, we're done here.
Oh.
Thanks, guys.
It's a weight and pulley apparatus.
Does it make the whole apparatus longer, or is it just adding more skin on? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, no, it makes it more stretchy. Stretch is in, right? It turns it into the yoga pants.
I'm looking for something.
That's it. That's all. Many thanks to the guys for joining, and as always, taking everything so seriously. Go to the website toobadforyou.wordpress.com. Follow the show. You can donate to the show. You can get in touch with the show. Thanks again for listening. Bye for now. Should we start this thing?
Yeah.
I thought we'd already started.
That can be 4 minutes of bonus footage or listening for your Patreon listeners.
Bonus material at the end for the YouTube subscribers for the Patreon. That's right. No, I'll bring us in.
Put it at your fans only page.
You mean OnlyFans?
OnlyFans. I just learned about this yesterday.
You know what OnlyFans? It's
Wait, so what's your handle now, Barg? Where can we get your Barg butt pics?
It's toes, baby, toes.
Oh, you're in the toe game. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
It's hard to make money in the butt industry and OnlyFans. There's a lot of butts out there, not a lot of toes.
It's a saturated market. Yeah, yeah. If you can get some, maybe a little portly toes with a little bit of hair on there.
Oh yeah.
The bears are into it.
Yeah. I make my money in pressed hams personally.
On the shower door or in windows?
Any sort of pane of glass, really.
All right. I'm going to bring it in.